Yeah, it's just like people don't believe what transport. Sebenarnya Hala çizgi and Kyle tried to break through. She's looking for who cares about anyone else's rights? I don't need people that like to promote their disinterest. It is CIA dropped off.
Term, ladies and gentlemen. Solid, but
Will
many
finance
different people
control.
all saying exactly the same thing. When I was in the United States Navy, ladies and gentlemen, I was attached to the Office of Naval Intelligence for the last, well, not the last, but for a period of approximately 5 years during my naval career. I had been 4 years in the United States Air Force with the Strategic Air Command, and was in the United States Navy about 11 years. And during that stint was attached to the Office of Naval Intelligence, where I learned most of the information that set me on a course to find out what was really happening to this country. Was as a member of the intelligence briefing team for the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet, who at that time was Admiral Bernard Clary. I saw documents that usually only a very few people would ever see, and would never see all of these different operations and programs and projects all at once, as I and the other members of the briefing team did. Now let me explain to you how security clearances work in the government. There is no such thing, ladies and gentlemen, as above top secret. So when you hear people talking foolishly about 23 levels above top secret, they're lying. There's not even one level above top secret. Top secret is the highest level of classification of information in the United States government and military service. There are sub-compartmentalizations of the classification of top secret. For instance, if you have a project that you don't want anybody to know about, even if they do the top secret, then you classify it by compartmentalizing. An example of such a project might be building the B-2 bomber, where each person only want to know just exactly what they had a need to know. So each person would be compartmentalized under top secret in an area that would give him or her only access to that particular piece of information or equipment that they were building or making or helping to assemble in order to produce the B-2 bomber. So classification for building bricks may have been top secret wall plug. It could be anything. And the people who had a top secret clearance, who were working on that particular piece of information that had to do with wall plug, could only see that information and nothing else. Because to be able to see information that had something to do with top secret roof, if you didn't have that roof clearance added to your top secret, you would not be able to see that information. Now, I'm just making these things up to give you some idea of what I'm talking about. While I was on the briefing team of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet, I noticed one thing. All of the members of the briefing team and everybody who had anything to do with intelligence were members of one or more of the so-called secret societies known to most of us as fraternal organizations. I wondered how I was assigned to the Office of Naval Intelligence until I began to remember how I had filled out my forms to get my security clearance. It came to a page that folded out like some of the computer paper that goes through a printer. It's all attached. You can have 5,000 feet of computer paper if you want to. Well, this was a form that folded out like that, and I forget how many sheets of paper there were included that were attached like this, all folded up, that contained the list of just about every kind of organization that you can imagine, ladies and gentlemen. And I was supposed to check or indicate any of those organizations that I had ever belonged to in my life. And it cautioned me that if I left out any organization that I had ever been a member of, that I would risk losing or not obtaining my security clearance. Well, the security clearance when you work in the government or in the military is a big thing, folks, and nobody wants to lose their security clearance or be denied a security clearance. It's shameful, as a matter of fact. And so I noticed that one of the organizations I had belonged to in my life, called the Order of the DeMolay, or the DeMolay Order for Young Men, was not included. So I checked Freemasonry, because the DeMolay organization for young men, or teenage boys, as a matter of fact, is the adolescent version of the Masonic Lodge, so to speak. Little did I know that when I checked Freemasonry, so that I could never be accused of leaving anything out, any of the organizations that I belonged to, that I would be signed to the Office of Naval Intelligence and then ultimately to the briefing team of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet. And so that's how I got assigned. And while I was there, I saw, ladies and gentlemen, and learned very quickly that the American people are very seldom, if ever, told the truth about literally anything. For instance, while President Nixon, and folks, don't blame it all on President Nixon, they all do it. This is the established policy of the national security apparatus. You don't tell anybody anything they don't have a need to know. And you never tell the American people the truth about what's happening, ever. It's just that simple. They don't have a need to know. Well, President Nixon was telling the nation on television that we were not bombing North Vietnam, that we had no troops in Cambodia or Laos, that we had not put any of our people in Cambodia or Laos, that we were not bombing or strafing or doing any air missions in Cambodia or Laos. I was sitting there with a group of high-ranking naval officers waiting for the latest bombing results of North Vietnam and the latest situation reports of our combat missions in Cambodia and Laos.
Get off my head.
So I knew early on that the American people were being lied to, and they're being lied to about everything, folks. The Vietnam War had nothing to do with communism, had nothing to do with any of the politics in Southeast Asia, as the American people have been told. It had absolutely everything to do with the drugs in what's known as the Golden Triangle and with the oil in the Gulf of Tonkin and the South China Sea. The number one mission of the United States Navy in the Gulf of Tonkin was not to support the troops engaged in battle on the ground in South Vietnam, but was to protect the oil exploration ships, which were locating the places that were scheduled to begin drilling for oil when we won the war. Well, it turned out that we didn't win the war. At the same time, the Central Intelligence Agency was taking over from the French the manufacture, and the exportation of drugs from Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and the what's known as the Golden Triangle, in order to use those drugs to bring in tons and tons of money for their black projects that they cannot get money for from Congress, and for the ultimate use in destroying all existing sovereign nation states and bringing about a one-world totalitarian socialist government. Now, folks, this was a long, long time ago that I saw this information. I was at the headquarters of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet between 1970 and 1973. In fact, I left in February of 1973. And during that time, I learned all of the things that I needed to know to do the research since then to arrive at the information that I'm going to give you right now. And so pay close attention. If I don't finish it today, I will, in fact, continue it tomorrow. And this is what you need to know. For those of you who are going to laugh or scoff and say that you don't believe it, that's fine. I don't care. You do what you want to do with the information, but nobody in this world can ever accuse me of not having given it to you. The plan for the destruction of the United States of America and the formation of a socialist, totalitarian, one-world government under the United Nations is contained, ladies and gentlemen, within a set of top-secret documents with the title Majesty 12, spelled M-A-J-E-S-T-Y-T-W-E-L-V-E. And no, ladies and gentlemen, I did not say Majestic 12. I said Majesty 12, spelled out, no space between Majesty and 12. The type font is a key to access of this information. All I can remember is it was a type of sans serif. It was a tall, very thin type. And in order to have access to this information, you had to have a top secret Q magic, spelled MAJIC, clearance, which we all had on the briefing team. We had access to anything that the Admiral had access to because we compiled the information and delivered it to him in briefings every morning in the briefing room. The term Majesty 12 honors the planned placement of ultimate power in a body of what they call a Council of Wise Men, sort of like the National Security Council. These men are destined to rule the world as the behind the scenes, that is, not known to the public, of a, quote, Messiah, end quote, front man. This Messiah, or so-called Messiah, won't really be his Messiah, but the public will look at him or her as such. This Messiah will serve as a buffer between the real rulers, the Council of Wise Men, and the sheeple of the world. Now, I discovered this plan between 1970 and 1973 while I was a member of the intelligence briefing team of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet, and I didn't understand all of it at that time. I didn't really know what it was that I had access to. The plan, ladies and gentlemen, outlines the formation of a world totalitarian socialist government. It is the policy of the United States government. It is to be ruled by a behind-the-scenes council of wise men. A benevolent dictator who is thought to be a messiah will be perceived as the real head of government. The Constitution of the United States of America and its Bill of Rights will be scrapped. A parliamentary form of government will take its place. All military forces and individuals are to be disarmed except for an internal police force which will carry only the minimum weapons needed to maintain internal order. There will only be one military force. Our military forces at the present time are acting as this force. It will be a world police force under the United Nations in sufficient numbers and with state-of-the-art technology so that it will be able to field overwhelming forces against any perceived threat to the world supra-government. If you doubt this, and if you doubt that it is the avowed policy of the United States government, see State Department publication 7277, which outlines the formation of this world police force. The military of the United States of America is currently filling the requirement. The senior officer corps of all of our military forces have betrayed their oaths of allegiance to the Constitution and have joined the conspiracy. They are, in fact, traitors and, in fact, engaged in high treason. The source of this conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen, will be found in the body known as the Illuminati. It is made up of the highest adepts of the combined total of the so-called fraternal orders and secret societies. These people are bound together by blood oaths, a secret religion, and the promise of an elite status within regional government and the world supra-government. To put it in their own words, quote, if you are not one of us, you are nothing, end quote. Their religion is based upon the Kabbalah and the Luciferian philosophy. They are not bound by any oath or allegiance save their own. They are loyal to no government or people save their own, and they are citizens of no country save their already in place secret world government. To understand some sense of feel for the concept and how this is being done right under your very eyes, see a movie called They Live. I'm not telling you that They Live is a true movie. I'm telling you that in this movie, the concept of how they are carrying about the destruction from within is presented to you in a method that you will clearly and easily be able to understand. You cannot ever hope to understand the philosophy of any branch of the so-called mystery school, which is the Illuminati, without many years of study and a complete knowledge of their symbolic language. You must understand, ladies and gentlemen, that like many other organizations, they attract those who completely miss the boat or are just too stupid to get it. When you join a branch of the Brotherhood by any name, I don't care what you call it, Freemasonry, the Theosophical Society, the Anthroposophic Society, Fraternitas Rosae Cruci, Knights Templar, Sovereign and Military Knights of Malta, or any other fraternal order or secret society. No one ever sits down with you and explains the meaning of anything. An actual, literal, esoteric education would just be too dangerous. It could result in public expose, something which the Illuminati must avoid at any cost. The organization of the order is a pyramidal structure of degrees. On the bottom are the so-called blue lodges, full of ignorant, materialistic, and opportunistic fools. And yes, folks, I said fools, and I mean it. Anyone who would join a secret society and be told up front, right in the beginning, that they're not going to learn anything, not one single thing about it, until they have been initiated and climb up the ladder of degrees in the organization, cannot be anything other than fools. They might be joining a society of murderers, for all they know. Promising candidates are chosen to be helped up the ladder of initiation by the help of those who have gone before. The initiate is presented with the objects of study, books, symbols, ritual, and camaraderie. But illumination must come from within. Each degree of initiation provides a new key to ultimate enlightenment, but only for those who can truly understand the ritual and symbols of the degree. Everyone at the bottom rung of the ladder of initiation, especially those of the Blue Lodge in the first 3 degrees, don't know beans jack dip about anything, about what they belong to, and never will. Where understanding or the ability to keep the secrets stops, the progress of the candidate stops, and they never, ever progress any higher. Only those above the 29th degree have the ability to understand the ultimate secrets and goals of the order. A very promising select few are handpicked for progress beyond the 32nd degree. Those chosen disappear behind the veil and become one of the, quote, 1,000 points of light, end quote, but they are more properly known as the Magi. That process has always been the protection of the Illuminati in a Christian world that has had a tendency to burn at the stake those who differed in belief or philosophy. The burning alive of men like Giordano Bruno and Jacques de Molay, the persecution of their orders, and persecution of men like Galileo by the Catholic Church has resulted in the Brotherhood's hatred of Christianity and the goal of the ultimate extermination of all religions save theirs. Now listen to me carefully. The goal is the ultimate extermination of all religions except for their religion. And yes, there is a religion.
How are you?
The philosophy at the core, ladies and gentlemen, of all of the mystery schools is the foundation and the font of socialism and communism. Most socialists don't have the slightest idea that they are puppets of an arcane philosophy bent upon world domination. They actually believe they will ultimately realize a world where everything is free, courtesy of Big Brother, and where all risk and worry has disappeared. Any such world would only be a world of slaves dependent upon an elite class of masters. What fools! The philosophy of the mystery school is the Luciferian philosophy as put forth by that's Christopher Albert Pike, who is one of the founders of the Ku Klux Klan. But it is not his original thought. He just expounded upon it in forms that eventually became accessible to those who seek it, like me. Before you began blabbering that Albert Pike's name never included Christopher, you better look up the meaning of that name and further understand that the Christ of the Mysteries has absolutely nothing to do with the Christ of the New Testament, at least not in the manner in which it is interpreted.
Unfortunately, I've had my bloody watch pack up. Yeah, I'm trying. I had food poisoning yesterday on top. Chilled the food for a few days. That's good. Yeah, just sort of put Bill Cooper on as I've got chill out music on as I'm trying to cook all the food that's been defrosted. Thank you for the offer. I haven't managed to look at it properly because I've tried to been busy. Oh, my head is killing me. To try and get these emails out to this wheelchair company, and it turns out they deliberately didn't repair it back in July this year, and then again where I had they put my life at risk with the wheel come off it back on 14th of the 8th this year, and it came off the wheel on the path, almost flipped over into the road. Personal injury. Major investigation. That's a load pack of lies I found out today. The email got back automatic email response was exactly the same as October this year by this woman called Beth. She lied through her teeth and put a mobile number. She didn't say it's a personal mobile, did it? And I assumed it was out of hours, emergency call number, which I was trying to ring. So, of course, I got through, somebody answered it, and I didn't expect it to be this woman called Beth. So, since the 8th of the 9th this year, her lies in her email saying there's a major investigation nationally because of the motor part of the left side of the wheelchair caused the accident, damage to me, the wheelchair. Yep. And the HMAR in London, poultry product, meant to be doing an investigation too. The company that makes the parts based in Wales, they're meant to be doing a full investigation too. Well, it's 3 months on. How long do you need to go investigate this for? So I found some old emails and linked up the dots basically. And when I spoke to her, I recorded the call for my personal use. And I got the evidence, and she couldn't. I didn't even realise she's on holiday, but she come up with this excuse. I said, "Yeah, I've sent you some emails since the last one, and I was wondering what's going on because I've been chasing it up since the last email in October." And I said it's a 3 months delay. The number three, Freemasonry. They love their numbers, don't they? She said, yeah, there's 3 other people that, like yourself, has had a faulty parts in their wheelchair. That's also been investigation. Oh, really? I said. Yeah, and I said, you realise it's been 3 months delay for my situation? And unfortunately, it's happened again. Luckily, the wheel hasn't come off yet, because I only just managed to get in, literally, without it falling off this time on the pathway. Goodness knows how I got in, but I did, and I'm stayed put, of course. So I can't use the wheelchair, it's dangerous. So, of course, hence the emails going off as soon as I could wake up and function. And, of course, shock to find out 8 o'clock this evening from her that they hadn't heard back from the Care UK Limited Company in Wales. And I knew that would be the excuse because I've also phoned up a couple of weeks back the company in Wales, and they have no record of any investigation by this Blatchford. Save the name online because it's a public company. Blatchford Limited Company, head office and base in Stoke in England. The local air office in my area, oh my goodness me, the amount of people involved in all this gang stalking with it all. And it's been a saga. It's been a long, long history. And basically, in a nutshell, this housing company, it's been using the local Freemasons, using their national contacts within their lodges to do the dirty work of the gang stalking and every angle. Now it's all linked up basically to the medical loan equipment service side. So that's why 2 years block to get my proper servicing done of my medical loan equipment. So it makes me look incompetent, which that I've got all these emails and letters, recorded post evidence, but they don't care. And now the wheelchair side. So housing company, and you can't go, like you said in your message on that Discord, you can't go, I cannot go again. So it's the first time I got this fridge, right? The grant system, originally first moved in. I cannot do that ever since 2018. It's all come to a head in 2019. I got this report. National Healthcare Ombudsman Services Limited Company in Coventry, England. The report confirms the maladministration of every department, every healthcare subject going throughout 2018 and 19. I was lied to that I was meant to be getting a proper physical, i.e., assessment of my healthcare needs. No, I wasn't having that at all, was I? So these agents locally in the main buildings across the way from me, right across the way from me, had lied, right, to all these other public funded companies. And now Ethics Online, isn't it? So falsified documents, and one of the end of the reports doesn't offer any remedy. I wasn't after financial remedy, just for their heads to roll, to be rolled and to be held accountable. And the new CEO, well, the company actually got dissolved. So by 2021, a new company took over, and it's now all part of the Agenda 2030, isn't it? So all of their key individuals that did all what they done to me are in higher positions now, got new titles, got promotions. So there isn't an option. I can't go to them to get the offer of funding or even a second-hand temporary fridge that's safe. So they deliberately just hammer me to get me sidetracked. So food poisoning was yesterday on top. So what hasn't been a pleasant time, put it mildly. So I spent hours before I got food poisoning looking online for that offer, you kindly suggested. So I was looking at a longer period over 3 years. Like I said, there's a hell of a lot of commitment, isn't it? Extremely expensive way of doing things. And it doesn't look like I've got any choice. I'll recheck your, as long as I don't get hammered tomorrow with loads of posts and loads of BS setups again. It's what they do, don't they? The trauma-based mind control program. Anyway, yeah, so I need to look at solutions, but it's like I used to, right? I.e., my carers know they're being gang-stalked, they're getting BS on their plate too, and they're trying to care for me. How difficult it is living in this situation with all the gang stalkers paid by these Freemasons and Masonic lodges, the demonic perps. And it's an international program anyway, isn't it? So, no, I can't chill out. I've had no chilling out time at all, myself anyway. They've just hammered me. They've just gone out their way these past 3 days. Really just one thing after another. So, yeah, Anyway, luckily I found a solution, temporary for food. You've got dry powder milk. So anyone that hasn't got a fridge, get your powdered milk and mix it with cold water, and it tastes lovely. I started getting these stuff in over about a year ago because it lasts really long shelf life, and dried powdered potatoes and things like that. But I can't get out to get new supplies for fresh stuff, so I just go through my storage what I've got at the moment. So I won't go without, and I found a way to keep a drink, water cold while the weather's a bit colder by the window. So I've got cold water because I haven't got no coldness in the fridge. So it's like at the moment I'm just trying to eat a bit of veg, a bit of mince. I have to be careful because they're radiating me, so I can't eat too much. But anyway, apart from all that, I thought I'd just put Bill Cooper on about the UN, about the world takeover of like in those movies I've seen. I was listening to someone's podcast earlier in the background, and she's got Brian Chew in her house in America. And that just told me completely what I always suspected about her all along. She's only put her face on camera and lied about being a super soldier survivor, a My Lab survivor, that's military black ops operations. And she's been just literally surviving and posting on different platforms, social media, just to get donations, PayPal, whatever, on top of whatever she gets over in America. And that's how she's been doing for years. And it all come to head today because I saw right through it. And so people out there say Brian Chew is genuine. And other people it's targeted around the world has always been saying that how on earth is he affording to be able to travel around the world, stay in all these hotels, buy these new gadgets, complaining that Cat Keaton had, I can't afford a new computer. It's like when they got me set up to get robbed beginning of the year, I saved up everything I had in that bag for 2 years. So it is absolutely what. So it's like the times we're living in, I thought I'll make do what I've got. I thought each to their own. Now I've seen through the veil. It was so clear what I was looking at and listening to as well. And I thought, she's got him in her house on her own when other people are saying things about him. And I take that notice. I don't give a monkey. Do what you got to do, But, and she goes on about she don't like being around men and all this other stuff. And I thought, oh my gosh. Here we go. I didn't say nothing in the chat. I'm just observing things. So it's just you get an ex-contractor, worked for DARPA with this brain interface technology, and goes on all the interviews and travel around the world to get away from it all. But you can't escape this torture. It's satellites and other stuff. I'm not an expert in technology, but it's just like, wow. Yeah. I was following this woman, and it was like she was quite spiritual and awakened, and now she's showing her true colours. Wow. And no disrespect, because if they're in the same state, and if you've got that bad snow, then yeah, you're going to help somebody out if you know them. But how did she get his email? How did she get a phone number off him? He doesn't give things like that out. All of his streams, he made that clear. And yet, there they are. What a way to end the year, right? To just It's all been exposed, isn't it? All this deception. It really is amazing. Be careful wherever you are, because this our Earth's meant to be hitting in the comet or comet asteroid this evening. But anyway, I can't read the chat that close, so I'm going to check my phone. I'm just reading your comments. Yeah, I've had it all. I know. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I haven't heard back from the garage. Oh, really? Yet again, you as well. Sorry to hear that. That sold me the faulty car. It's dangerous, isn't it? Dropped a car with them and said they wouldn't refund. Yeah, you said about that. That's disgusting, as you say. So gotta take further action in 7 days. I tell you, what things you have to go through. Eh? Yeah, they like to pass problems between different people and businesses. That's it. Everybody goes on holiday, always off work immediately. When I have major complaints to sort out or need urgent answers, yes, so identical in a way to me. Standard practice, absolutely. Yes, people who asked me at work were given better jobs with partner companies as they were not available to be questioned, etc. See, they get promoted, don't they? Yeah, powder is much better than it was and keeps. Yes. Yeah, I use that milk. UHT milk is another, but doesn't. No, that's what I read on the carton today. You have to keep it refrigerated and use for 3 days. And the litre size, I'm not a big milk drinker. Within that time span, I only use it for porridge. But I found another way to make porridge, making a powder. And because it's powder, you can use the little spoonfuls. I make it as with water. I make it as a milk base to add into a porridge, and that's really, really healthy to keep warm. Everyone is different circumstances, absolutely. Not saying who is or who isn't targets, but Brian says he used to work a good job in government. He sold his house, or saved he could travel. Each to their own. I don't know them personally, so I can't really go into any comments or anything about it myself. It's just what I observed tonight. Some targets have houses. Yes, I know. Yeah, right. We're all in different situations. Exactly. We all got. It's all targeted to your personal situation, isn't it? The program. It's not one size fits all. I'm not saying Brian isn't always and can't trust online stuff in that. Exactly like you said. Absolutely. Because as soon as you were saying that, right, I'm just going to try and get the name to it. As soon as you said that, I was starting getting all this hacking and all this deliberate notifications when I'm trying to do something else. It's like, oh my gosh. I'm trying to drink plenty liquid. My straw's all quashed up. Trying to drink a drink with a straw that bent. How's your sleeping been? Yeah, I've got to work out my finances. So I literally cannot do anything without the bloody wheelchair. Oh. But I would try. I know. I just have to ignore any demands, any posts. And you know what it's like. They try and set me up, turn up my door and lie and say, we're concerned about your surroundings. This is a saga, right? My housing, a saga. All these perks. I can name and shame all of them, but I'm not like that. I leave it to the creator because they sold out and they've sold their souls. So anyway, I was going to do Bill Cooper in the middle. Yeah, you see, what I was listening to earlier, the podcast, is like, what web have I got it on? See if I can find it. Save the website. It's got audio. Let's see if we can find it. I will get to sleep eventually at some point. My mind, oh my god, my bloody nightmares. I tell you, they hack into my bloody brain. And I don't know what saved it now. But they were, I can remember them hacking into my dreams. Vividly. And I woke up and I thought, oh, hold on, let me just set my alarm. I forgot to do that. It's 12:30. Yeah, it's not on there. I wonder if it's on there. I forgot what I was just saying. Not being great either. Not Jews on me, but loud house noises, which they create at specific times. Yeah, they do that because these demonic entities need a reaction. I learned that one. I think noises are done with Jews. As the house makes noises, the start went under attack. Yeah. So I was trying to do a video about the wheelchair, just upload, just document it all, you know. And they go bang and bang and whatever. And it's like outside the window all day today on my kitchen side. And it's like the drive-bys, the bikes, that are bangs at the moment. Well, they're all on strike again. Where's the police sirens, ambulance sirens, fire truck sirens, noises like that. You know, when it gets too quiet, you know what they're plotting, you know? It's like you have to trust your gut instinct on these things. You can't think it out. Let's go find that website. Yep. I hope we get some soon. Right. I think it's this one. I found a couple of websites for renting, but when I've checked them out, you know, if I was going to rent a fridge, for example, it needs to be like, it doesn't really matter, because, oh my blessing, it was suggesting it. An old, I don't know if he doesn't realise, but in this program, there isn't anyone you can turn to, right? Especially over in England. So there isn't any option in that regard. So you can't go to Gumtree, you can't do it on Facebook, because it's like, you're not going to get the delivery. They're going to mess it up. I've had so much stuff going on. I can't even get things away. Can't even recycle anything. Because when I try to hire a van, um, when my son was talking to me a while ago, and I saved up for it to recycle a lot of stuff I don't need in this place. Yeah, it's all started getting blocked. Oh, we haven't got anything available. Oh, this, all that, and then the excuse, and then they started working on my son to turn him against me in the girls' talking program. So yeah, that worked, didn't it? By the end of 21, disappeared off the face of the earth. All communication stopped. So they get to your friends and family. Can't find the website. Let me see if I've got the audio in this one. I think it could be Orphan Survival. This is I found some tips for Orphan Survival. Is that one? I don't know if you know the website called. If I can find it. Oh, Nick is good at electronics, is he? This is a problem, right? These really meaningful people, okay? I am not able to do anything about electronics. It's like Mo said about certain components and do this and do that. And it's like, if I knew about electronics and very good at things like that, and I had my mobility, physical mobility, then perhaps, yeah, I'll give it a go. Anything's worth a try, isn't it? But I don't have my physical health that way. So I'm limited. And my care friends are not able to, they're very skilled in other areas, but not in these mechanical, electronic side. And that's so frustrating. So bless his heart, I just got a message from Nick and it's just, you know, I do video chat, but unfortunately, all due respect, I can't physically. It's the bearings on the same part of the wheelchair side where the wheelchair wheel came off in the first place. So it is. Oh, and he said he worked on mobility stuff before. So, oh, I'm too knackered right now to respond too much right now. There's too much on my plate. Anyway, I can't find that website, so go back to Bill Cooper. I've saved it somewhere, but I don't know where it is now. I was listening to the podcast, and it was a really good distraction. Yeah, I couldn't find it. Yeah, trying to get one of these bloody. I really need to relook at your offer. Okay, so I'll go back to Bill Cooper. Oh, they message your house searches. Bloody nightmare, isn't it? I'm going to try to chill as late. Hopefully have a better night. You take care too. I can't type back, but I'm going to put the Bill Cooper back on. You take care. Questions to you.
Interpreted by the Christian church. Christopher literally means Christ-like. And in the mystery religion, in the ranks of the Illuminati, Albert Pike reached what they call apotheosis. He became Christ-like, is an ascended master, helping to guide them from the so-called spirit world. If you'll look straight up, standing in the rotunda of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., you'll see that they believe the same thing happened to George Washington, the first president of the United States of America. Pictured on the inside of the Capitol dome, you will see George Washington in the chariot of Apollo, riding across the sky, surrounded around the periphery of the dome with all the old gods of the Roman pantheon. Now, if you want some sense of how these things are being brought about, watch the series Star Trek from the beginning episodes up to the present. And you will begin to realize that it was an indoctrination into the concepts of socialism through subliminal initiation of the youth of the nation. The captains, James T. Kirk and Christopher Pike, are symbolic salutes to the Order of the Knights of the Temple of Jerusalem and to the Brotherhood's greatest philosopher and probably its most prolific writer, Christopher Albert Pike. Those who understand the symbolic language would have noticed the most recent Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Awards ceremony recognized the coming of the, quote, new dawn, end quote, with the rising sun on the backdrop and the two triple crowns of the mysteries representing the Trinity of Osiris, Isis, and the child Horus on each side. And you thought they were just statues of the Oscar. Very simply, ladies and gentlemen, the philosophy is, quote, Adam and Eve were held prisoner in the chains of ignorance of an unjust and vindictive God in the Garden of Eden. They were set free from their bonds by Lucifer, known in the myths as Prometheus. And the setting free of their bonds is called evolution, or primordial knowing. They were set free by Lucifer through his agent Satan in the guise of a serpent, which is the ancient symbol of wisdom, with the gift of intellect, known in the mysteries as fire. Through the use of his intellect, they believe man will perfect the race, the Aryan race, Anglo-Aryan race to be exact, and will himself become God. It is a metaphor for the development of the thinking man through the process.
Right, this is audio in the background I'm playing. Mystery 12, the Greeks. William Bill Cooper Alves, the time broadcast, 1998. So I'm just background. If you want to learn more, you need to look at William Bill Cooper from the 90s, and he already predicted this global takeover. So this is a communist over America will be taken over, and the New World Order stands for the globalist world control with Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050. Everything to do with finance, healthcare, housing is all in place now. And don't be scared, just be prepared. So this is the audio I'm doing in the background.
Of evolution and the eventual domination of the universe by learning how to dominate and control nature. This process is called magic. The result will be the apotheosis of the race of mankind and the elimination of all who cannot make this paradigm shift in the coming new age. The alchemists had the same religion, but disguised it, ladies and gentlemen, under the profane interpretation of the exoteric or outward expression of turning lead into gold. The search for the philosopher's pure red stone was really the attempt to perfect the soul of mankind. Don't you really feel pretty smart now? I hope so. I hope a light is coming on in your head, because of a lot of this you have seen glimpses of, little pieces here and there. Some of the symbology has mystified you. Some of it will gel in your mind as you hear this. Those who are attracted to the mysteries, ladies and gentlemen, who are unable to grasp the esoteric meaning of their education, often take the exoteric meaning to be the truth and turn to Satan or Lucifer as their object of worship, never understanding the metaphor for a much deeper philosophy. The order never objects to this because these Satan worshippers are useful in their own manner. They furnish a diversion and are often a source of large sums of money, although the Brotherhood, folks, has seldom found themselves lacking in fools or funds. Shirley MacLaine understands the philosophy perfectly, though probably not in its correct interpretation. She is a member of In Good Standing. I am God is, of course, the true message. Fire is the god of the mysteries, and its priests are the philosophers of fire.
You hear
They believe that any concept of creation
in the chat?
must result in the idea that all things are manifestations of the Creator, which is pantheism. Since man is the only creation with intelligence and original thought, the combined or collective consciousness of mankind, they believe, is the mind of God. Ergo, man is God. And that should enlighten you to the source of some of the more difficult to understand concepts of the so-called New Age movement. Now, ladies and gentlemen, don't get the fool called by the mysteries the profane mixed up with the king or the initiate known as Fraternitas Rex Mundi. Those who cannot understand this philosophy through the hidden language of symbology and make the shift in thinking for the coming millennium are doomed to extinction. And the spokespersons for the New Age make absolutely no secret of this fact. It has been published over and over and over again that those who cannot make this so-called paradigm shift will simply be exterminated. Wake up, America, you've been had. And wise up. None of you, and I'll say it again and again, and I don't care how angry you get with me, it is absolutely true. None of you are even remotely as smart as you think you are. This is the age of deception, and the world is balanced upon a razor. One half is scheduled to be exterminated if these people have their way, and the other half is scheduled to be enslaved with a mystical union between the moon, which is Isis or the church, and the sun, which is Osiris or the doctrine. Greets the sun, spelled S-O-N, of the morning, which is Horus, or the full body of initiates or adepts, on the horizon, which is Horus risen, in the, quote, new dawn, end quote, which is the realization of the New World Order. With that in mind, read the full text of President Clinton's 1997 State of the Union address to Congress. And if light doesn't flicker in your brain when you read that, you are beyond help. He said,
do you know who you worship?
we are watching the sun set while we prepare our children for the new dawn. We have 1,000 days to complete our work.
Let me know you can
wake up.
Audio in the background.
This conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen, is also extremely racist.
Comments what you think to the audience.
These people consider blacks, Hispanics, and Aboriginal people to be, quote, useless eaters, end quote. They believe, or at least profess, that the Anglo-Aryan race is the true Israel, and thus the master race. Now, in all truth, the leaders of this subversion don't believe any such thing, ladies and gentlemen, but they use this as a tool to manipulate and guide these silly idiots who do. Despite the racism of the Illuminati, they have convinced the useless eaters that they are their friends, benefactors, and protectors. While destroying these poor people with socialism, they have convinced them that Marx is their savior. And these sheep will follow this Judas goat eagerly, first to be sheared, and then to their re-enslavement and eventual, probably, slaughter.
Soul Survivors music.
In this world government, there will be no individual rights, only privileges. Privileges can be granted or denied at will by the world's super government. All property is to be owned by the state. There will be a redistribution of wealth in order to eliminate class differences and level the standard of living to a much lower level in the advanced nations, such as the United States of America, and to a higher standard of living in the so-called third world nations. This leveling of the standard of living will be accomplished through a global economic collapse, which right now, regardless of what you see happening in the phony stock market, is in its beginning stages. The economic collapse will fulfill the goal of Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto, which mandates the elimination of the middle class. The graduated income tax, NAFTA, and GATT, which have caused industry to move into third world nations in order that corporations may exploit cheap labor, are also a part of this process. All county and state governments are to be eliminated and replaced with regional government. And those of you listening who are in county and state and city governments already have felt the pressure to bring this about. These regional governments are, in fact, already in place.
2030.
Regionalism is gradually taking control throughout America. There will be no more cash money. All trade will be accomplished by a system of computer credits, with accounts accessed through debit cards or computer chip implants, which will also serve as personal identification, driver's license, and etc.
96.
The plan, ladies and gentlemen, for the creation of a socialist world government is protected by an invented extraterrestrial threat from space. The entire UFO phenomenon and the so-called ufology, which I call the ufology movement, has been created to further the protection and activation of this plan. Within Majesty 12 is Operation Majority, which justifies the plan by presenting an extraterrestrial threat as the reason for the necessity for world government. Operation Majority is named after the original Bolshevik party which sparked the Russian Revolution. Bolshevik literally means the majority. The plan states that if the American people are ever told of this extraterrestrial presence, these aliens will destroy the United States of America. Now, folks, all who have access to this plan, or who inadvertently discover the plan, are silenced by that warning.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I believed it for over 16 years before I began to produce research that told me that this was all the biggest hoax in the history of the world to create a phony artificial threat to this earth. The report from Iron Mountain confirmed it. Statements made in 1917 by John Dewey, that's 1917, ladies and gentlemen, by John Dewey, in a speech he made in New York, also confirmed it. In my study of the broadcast on CBS, which was owned and created by William Paley, who, ladies and gentlemen, has always been an operative of the intelligence community of the United States of America, confirmed it. A further safeguard ensures that anyone who links the so-called alien threat with the coming world government will be ridiculed and discredited by the press. When I saw this plan while I was in the Navy, I believed it. It was not until I had performed many years of research that I was able to fully understand exactly what it was that I had seen. It was extremely difficult, at best, for me to believe that my government and the Navy had used me in the manner in which they had, especially since I had dedicated my life to government and military service. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this plan is real. The extraterrestrial threat is artificial. The alien threat, or so-called alien threat, is presented as real through the use of secret technology which was originally developed by the Germans in their secret weapons programs during World War II, by geniuses like Nikola Tesla and many others. Most military and government personnel who have access to this material believe sincerely that the extraterrestrial threat is real. They, like I, could not and will not probably understand how they are being manipulated and lied to. It took me many years to understand it. None of them, and I can say this absolutely with no hesitation whatsoever, not one single one of them has ever seen any evidence of the existence of any extraterrestrial creature or any advanced technology other than that of human origin. All, and I mean all, ladies and gentlemen, so-called leaks are intentional disinformation projects perpetrated by the counterintelligence divisions of the various organizations within the intelligence community, which are designed to promote the artificial alien threat scenario while allowing for complete deniability on the part of government. The antics of Vicky Cooper, no relation, now Vicky Cooper Ecker, Donald Francis Ecker III, William Moore, Jamie Chanderay, Stanton T. Friedman, Bud Hopkins, John Lear, Linda Moulton Howe, Art Bell, George Knapp, Colonel Philip Corso, the so-called alien autopsy film, which is a fake, fraud, hoax, NASA, the Mars meteorite, supposedly containing fossil evidence of life on Mars, and many other people and events are projects of this type. The plan, ladies and gentlemen, to create an artificial extraterrestrial threat to the Earth was first mentioned by John Dewey in New York during 1917 in a speech to the visiting Japanese imperial delegation headed by Viscount Ishii. The premise was tested for credibility with the CBS presentation of The War of the Worlds by Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on October the 30th, 1938. The public believed that this broadcast was a real news event. Many people jumped out of windows. In Grover's Mill, New Jersey, farmers and residents ran out of their homes and, forgetting who they were and where they were, shot their own water tower to shreds, believing that it was one of these alien tripod death machines. The public believed that what they heard was real, and thus it set the stage for the implementation of an alien threat scenario. The only problem was that the state-of-the-art of technology at that time did not allow for a believable presentation. The development of saucer-shaped wingless and tailless flying machines by the Germans during World War II and by the United States, Great Britain, Canada, and most probably Australia after World War II solved the problem. Now, we recently came into possession of a document that was released to us through the Freedom of Information Act from the Central Intelligence Agency. And here's what the document says. Memorandum to Director, Psychological Strategy Board, Subject Flying Saucers. 1. I am today transmitting to the National Security Council a proposal, Tab A, in which it is concluded that the problems connected with unidentified flying objects appear to have implications for psychological warfare as well as for intelligence and operations. 2. The background of this view is presented in some detail in Tab B. 3. I suggest that we discuss at an early board meeting the possible offensive or defensive utilization of these phenomena for psychological warfare purposes. Signed, Walter B. Smith, known as General Walter Bedell Smith, who at that time was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot use something for psychological warfare or for intelligence and operations. You cannot use them for defensive utilization or for psychological warfare purposes unless you are the ones who have complete and total control over these objects. After World War II, the announcement of the Jewish Holocaust, the proposal of a world government which would prevent future wars and genocide by the formation of the United Nations in 1945, and the announcement of sightings of flying saucers by Kenneth Arnold, that's Kenneth Arnold, my tongue's getting a little tied here, folks, by Kenneth Arnold, an ex-intelligence officer in 1947, launched this deception. And since then, by the way, every single person connected with UFOs has been a member of some branch of the intelligence community.
CIA,
The natural guilt harbored by the men of the 509th Atomic Bomb Wing after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki made them eager conspirators in orchestrating the faked crash of an extraterrestrial craft and discovery of shaved and surgically altered monkeys near Roswell, New Mexico. The artificial extraterrestrial threat was thus implanted in the public consciousness.
See?
We also have in our possession another recently released document, this one from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, that literally tells the truth about Roswell, New Mexico. It's from the FBI office in Dallas to the director and senior agent in charge in Cincinnati. That's the director of the FBI and the senior agent in charge in Cincinnati. Urgent. flying disc information concerning, and that's blacked out, Headquarters, 8th Air Force, telephonically advised this office that an object purporting to be a flying disc was recovered near Roswell, New Mexico this date. The disc is hexagonal in shape and was suspended from a balloon by cable, which balloon was approximately 20 feet in diameter. There are several words blacked out. Further advised that the object found resembles a high-altitude weather balloon with a radar reflector, but that telephonic conversation between their office and Wright Field had not, this is blanked out, and then borne out this belief. Disc and the balloon being transported to Wright Field by a special plane for examination. Information provided this office because of national interest in case blank, that's blacked out, and fact that National Broadcasting Company, Associated Press, and others attempting to break story of location of disc today. Another two words are blacked out. Advised would request Wright Field to advise Cincinnati office results of examination, no further investigation being conducted. And then it has all the routing and the typical stuff on it. This is an authentic document. It is real, and it tells the truth. Now, applying Hitler's concept, ladies and gentlemen, of the big lie, the artificial extraterrestrial threat was nurtured and built into an always present possibility over the next 50 years. Eventually, a large percentage of the world's population, including many of you listening, found themselves believing in alien ships, extraterrestrial visitations, alien mutilation of animals, which is really the byproduct of the government's experimentation with low-level radiation effects on animals and humans, downwind of atomic power plants, nuclear weapon assembly plants, and various other facilities that occasionally, on purpose or by accident, release radiation into the atmosphere. And alien abductions of humans with absolutely, and I'll say this again, with absolutely no proof that extraterrestrials exist anywhere in the universe, much less that any have ever visited this planet whatsoever. To try to obtain any, just in case some exists, some organizations have offered as much as $1 million reward to anyone who will bring forth any shred of any evidence whatsoever of the proof of the existence of extraterrestrial life. Not one single person has ever come forward to claim any of these rewards ever at any time. The artificial threat is further advanced through the mind control programming of Marxists in Hollywood, television, advertising, publishing houses, and of course the vast ufology movement, all of which are in the complete control of the Illuminati and the intelligence community. Fear, ladies and gentlemen, is instilled through the incidental use of terror, inspired by the cattle and animal mutilation byproducts of the government's secret radiation monitoring operations and the so-called alien abduction scenario induced by state-of-the-art and extremely sophisticated mind control operations. To make interstellar travel believable, NASA was created. The Apollo space program foisted the idea that man could travel to and walk upon the moon. Every Apollo mission was carefully rehearsed and then filmed in large sound stages at the Atomic Energy Commission's top-secret test site in the Nevada desert and in a secured and guarded soundstage at the Walt Disney Studios, within which was a huge-scale mock-up of the moon. All names, missions, landing sites, and events in the Apollo space program echo the occult metaphors, rituals, and symbology of the Illuminati's secret religion. One of the most transparent was the faked explosion on Apollo 13, which was the metaphor for the initiation ceremony involving the death, which was the explosion, placement in the coffin, which was the period of uncertainty of their survival, communion with the spiritual world and the imparting of esoteric knowledge to the candidate, which was their orbit and observation of the moon without physical contact, rebirth of the initiate, which is the solution of the problem and repairs, and the raising up by the grip of the lion's paw, which is the reentry and recovery of Apollo 13. 13 is the number of death and rebirth, death and reincarnation, sacrifice, the phoenix, the Christ, not the Christ that you know, ladies and gentlemen, and the transition from the old to the new. Another revelation to those who understand the symbolic language of the Illuminati is the hidden meaning of the names of the space shuttles. Now listen to me very carefully. Quote, a Colombian enterprise to endeavor for the discovery of Atlantis, and all challengers shall be destroyed, end quote. Exploration of the moon stopped because it was impossible to continue the hoax without being ultimately discovered. And of course, they ran out of pre-filmed episodes. No man, no human man, has ever ascended higher than 300 miles, if that high, above the Earth's surface in any publicly known space program. No man has ever orbited, landed on, or walked upon the moon in any publicly known space program. If we ever went to the moon, ladies and gentlemen, it was not in the Apollo space program. If we have ever been to the moon, it has been done in secret with a far different technology. Just to give you one example, scientists have stated publicly, ladies and gentlemen, that for a human being to survive transportation through the Van Allen radiation belt, which it completely encloses this Earth, encircles this Earth, it would take 4 feet of lead.
Yeah.
Now just think about that. The tremendous radiation encountered in the Van Allen belt, the solar radiation, cosmic radiation, temperature control, and many other problems connected with space travel prevent living organisms leaving our atmosphere with our known level of technology. Any intelligent high school student with a basic physics book can prove NASA faked the Apollo moon landings. Any photographer who is even remotely worth his salt can prove that almost all of the photographs presented to us as being taken in space or on the moon by the Apollo space program are fraud, are fake, are phony. All of them were made with studio lighting in specially prepared buildings and mock-ups of the lunar surface. Now, if you doubt this, please explain, ladies and gentlemen, how the astronauts walked upon the moon's surface enclosed in a spacesuit in full sunlight, absorbing a minimum of 265 degrees of heat, surrounded by a vacuum. NASA tells us the moon has no atmosphere and that the astronauts were surrounded by the vacuum of space. Heat is defined as the vibration or movement of molecules within matter. So faster the molecular motion, the higher the temperature. The slower the molecular motion, the colder the temperature. Absolute zero is that point where all molecular motion ceases. In order to have hot or cold, molecules must be present. A vacuum is a condition of nothingness where there are no molecules. There is no hot and no cold in a vacuum. Vacuums exist, however, in degrees. Some scientists tell us that there is no such thing as an absolute vacuum, but that space is the closest thing to an absolute vacuum that is known to man. There are so few molecules present in most areas of what we know as space that any concept of hot or cold is absolutely impossible to measure and, in fact, for all intents and purposes, does not exist. A vacuum is a perfect insulator. That, ladies and gentlemen, is why a thermos bottle or a vacuum bottle is used to store hot or cold liquids in order to maintain the temperature for the longest time possible without reheating or recooling. You see, space is not cold. Space insulates whatever is in space and tends to keep it at whatever temperature it is for the longest period of time possible. Radiation of all types will travel through a vacuum, but will not affect the vacuum. Radiant heat from the sun travels through the vacuum of space, but does not warm space. In fact, the radiant heat of the sun has no effect whatsoever until it strikes matter. Molecular movement will increase in direct proportion to the radiant energy which is absorbed by matter. The time it takes to heat matter exposed to direct sunlight in space is determined by its color, its elemental properties, its distance from the sun, and its rate of absorption of radiant heat energy. And at this point, we're going to have to call it
And I'm not sure
a
how.
day. And I will continue right here where I left off tomorrow. That is, if I'm still here to do it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're listening closely, and I hope you're taking notes. I'm going to blow the lid off of this crap. The greatest nation, the greatest people, with the highest standard of living, the best opportunities, the highest morals, the best educational systems that has ever existed on this earth is being destroyed by these scumbags from within. Some of them are your relatives. Good night, and God bless each and every single one of you. You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all ready for tonight's broadcast. This is a live broadcast, and we're going to talk about documents that I saw while I was with the Office of Naval Intelligence, specifically on the intelligence briefing team of the United States Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, who at that time was Admiral Bernard Clary. These documents outlined the coming formation of a one-world socialist government. There were many different aspects to this plan. One called for the ultimate unification of all religions into one, or to put it another way, the destruction of all existing religions, save the religion of the group that is bringing about what is known to most of us as the world order. It is, in fact, and it was revealed by this plan, that they are the sum total of the highest adepts of all of the secret societies and so-called fraternal orders, which as one body make up the mystery schools, or the ancient mystery religion of Babylon. This plan called for the creation of an artificial, and I stress that word, artificial, threat to this earth. The entire eulogy movement, ladies and gentlemen, is a creation meant to bring that about. Don't go away. I'll be back in just a couple of minutes. We will continue. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is a plan to bring about a new world order, and a lot of the things that you see happening in the world today are a direct result of action taken to complete that plan. Many of you aren't going to believe a word that I'm saying, and that's okay. You will find out eventually, I can assure you. And just as a little aside here, years that I've been warning people about this and teaching people about what's really going on, I have made probably 200 or 300 predictions. I've only all of my predictions have come true, ladies and gentlemen, except for one. That was my prediction that Manuel Noriega would not be tried in an American court or serve any time in an American prison because it was against the law of nations for somebody like the United States to arbitrarily decide to arrest the leader of a foreign country. Just as their diplomats have immunity when they are here in this nation representing their country, the heads of government of all countries have diplomatic immunity unless they are captured as an act of war. But that was no war, ladies and gentlemen. It may have been an act of war, but it was no war. It was a police action. I mean, our troops went down there specifically to arrest Manuel Noriega on charges put forward by the Justice Department in a United States court. It was unlawful. At the time, I was not aware that they were so far along in their plans that the concept of sovereign nations no longer stands. Which means if another nation ever becomes more powerful than the United States of America, they can do the same thing to us, ladies and gentlemen, or the United Nations. If the Security Council votes to arrest the President of the United States based upon the precedent that we set in Panama, they can do it. Now, I'm going to overlap on yesterday's broadcast just a little bit to make sure that we're not behind in anything. I want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't want to come in the middle of something that we started yesterday, so we're going to back up a little bit. And I'm going to go over some material that we have already covered. As always, when you listen to the Hour of the Time, folks, make sure you have pen and paper handy and that you use it, take copious notes. And once you have this information and you understand it, if you watch the events happening in the world, all of a sudden, things will begin to come together and make sense to you that made no sense to you ever before in your life. If you really believe that things on the worldwide scale happen all the time by accident, then you're not playing with a full deck of cards, folks. If all of these things were happening by accident, at least some of them would happen in our favor, but they're not. The law of averages, the laws of statistics say that eventually the card has to come up in our favor. We have to get a winning hand. But we are continually losing big time. And I mean big time. So let's back up. Remember, I talked yesterday about the creation of an artificial alien threat to this earth to facilitate the destruction of sovereign nations, the coming together as one humanity under a one world government, with all people willing to make whatever sacrifices are called upon them to make, such as giving up all your liberties and freedoms and anything else they may ask you to do, in order to oppose this external threat. And I talked about a lot of other things, but if you want to go back and cover those, folks, you're going to have to buy the tape. Now, this radio station and this broadcast is owned and operated by the Independence Foundation Trust, which is a non-profit charitable organization. So if you want to find out how to acquire the tapes of any broadcast of the Hour of the Time, write to Harvest Trust. That's Harvest Trust. P.O. Box 2470, Pine Top, Arizona 85935. That's Harvest Trust, P.O. Box 2470, Pine Top, in any publicly known space program. If man has exceeded the 300-mile limit, and if man has ever truly been to the moon, it has been done in secret and with a far different technology. It was not done in the Apollo space program. And any high school student with a basic physics book can prove it. The tremendous radiation encountered in the Van Allen belt, a belt surrounding the Earth, ladies and gentlemen, of such intense radiation that before this information became embarrassing, scientists stated unequivocally that for a man to get through the Van Allen belt without frying in this radiation, he would need a 4-foot-thick lead shield.
Okay.
But that's not all. In space, there is solar radiation. You see, standing on the surface of the Earth or anywhere within our atmosphere, even a thin atmosphere, we are protected from the solar radiation and from the tremendous increase above the normal solar radiation that is created by solar flares and flung throughout the universe. Most of them are unpredictable, cannot be predicted. There's no such thing as saying we're going to send a man from the Earth to the moon during this period of time because we know there's not going to be any solar flares or solar storms. and thus they'll be safe from radiation. Cannot be done. On top of that, there's cosmic radiation. On top of that, there is a tremendous problem with temperature control and many other problems connected with space travel, which prevent living organisms leaving our atmosphere with our known level of technology. As I said, any intelligent high school student with a basic physics book can prove NASA faked the Apollo moon landings. Now, if you doubt this, ladies and gentlemen, please explain how the astronauts walked upon the moon's surface enclosed in a spacesuit in full sunlight, absorbing a minimum of 265 degrees of heat surrounded by a vacuum. 265 degrees, ladies and gentlemen, is 55 degrees above the boiling point of water. Now, it would take one hell of an air conditioning system to keep them cool. NASA tells us the moon has no atmosphere and that the astronauts were surrounded by the vacuum of space. Well, if that's true, ladies and gentlemen, heat is defined as the vibration or movement. Heat is defined, ladies and gentlemen, as the vibration or movement of molecules within matter. The faster the molecular motion, the higher the temperature. The slower the molecular motion, the colder the temperature. Absolute zero is that point where all molecular motion ceases. In order to have hot or cold, ladies and gentlemen, molecules must be present. NASA tells us that space is absolute zero, that it is colder than any cold that any person has ever experienced, because absolute zero is like 200 and something degrees below the zero that you know about. Do you understand what I'm telling you? That is a lie. NASA has intentionally lied to us all of these years. Space is a vacuum. A vacuum is a condition of nothingness where there are no molecules. Vacuums, ladies and gentlemen, exist in degrees. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Some scientists tell us that there is no such thing as an absolute vacuum. But space is the closest thing to an absolute vacuum that has ever been known to us. There are so few molecules present in most of the areas of what we know as space that any concept of hot or cold is absolutely impossible to measure. For all intents and purposes, it cannot be measured, does not exist.
Where are you from?
Now remember, a vacuum is a perfect insulator. That's why a thermos bottle or a vacuum bottle is used by all of you to store your hot or cold liquids in order to maintain the temperatures for the longest time possible without reheating or recooling. Same thing in space, ladies and gentlemen. Space is a perfect insulator. It is not cold. However, an object in space can be heated by the radiant heat of the sun, which can travel through a vacuum, although it does not affect the vacuum. Remember, for something to be heated or cooled, there must be molecules present. Radiation of all types will travel through a vacuum, but will not affect that vacuum. Radiant heat from the sun travels through the vacuum of space, but does not warm space. In fact, the radiant heat of the sun has no effect whatsoever until it strikes matter. Molecular movement will increase in direct proportion to the radiant energy which is absorbed by matter. The time it takes to heat matter exposed to direct sunlight in space is determined by its color, its elemental properties, its distance from the sun, and its rate of absorption of radiant heat energy. In other words, an object in space will absorb the radiant heat energy of the sun and will be heated until its temperature becomes equal to the radiant heat that it is absorbing. The side of the object that is in shadow will not be cooled by the so-called, quote, cold of space, end quote, NASA's lie that it has perpetrated for all of these years. It does not happen. Heat will spread through any object. through contact of molecule against molecule until the heat of the object all over the object has become equal, ladies and gentlemen. Now understand what I just told you. Objects which are heated cannot be cooled by space. In order for an object to cool, it must first be removed from direct sunlight, and then it will stay at the temperature that it is at for quite a long time until the molecular motion slows down through the resistance of molecules vibrating against each other until all motion stops if the object is kept out of direct sunlight for a long enough period of time. Objects which are in the shadow of another object will eventually cool, but not because space is cold. Space is not cold. Space has no temperature whatsoever. Space is a perfect insulator. Hot and cold do not exist in the vacuum of space, or in any vacuum for that matter. Objects cool because the laws of motion dictate that the molecules of the object will slow down due to the resistance resulting from striking other molecules until eventually all motion will stop, provided the object is sheltered from the direct and or indirect radiation of the sun and that there is no other source of heat. And this process takes quite a long time. NASA insists the spacesuits the astronauts supposedly wore on the lunar surface were air-conditioned. An air conditioner cannot and will not work without a heat exchanger. A heat exchanger, ladies and gentlemen, simply takes heat gathered in a medium such as Freon from one place and transfers it to another place. Water can be used. Air can be used. Anything that will conduct heat can be used for this process. This requires a medium of molecules which can absorb and transfer the heat, such as the atmosphere or water. An air conditioner will not and cannot work in a vacuum. NASA, in fact, says that their air conditioning works by a system of tubes which carry water all around the body, all throughout the spacesuit, and to a heat exchanger, which is cooled by ejecting water onto coils which freeze because of the cold of space, and then the water on the coils absorbs the heat from the water in the coils and then evaporates into space. Does not happen, ladies and gentlemen. It is another lie. Such a system might work in the atmosphere of the Earth, but it will not work in the vacuum of space. In fact, if you look at the videotapes, the good videotapes of the astronauts walking around in their spacesuits, you will see no tubes of heat exchangers of any kind and no ice formed on their backpacks anywhere at any time, which means if such a heat exchanger exists, it must exist underneath the backpack, and there must be an opening there so that the ice can have contact with the vacuum of space. When you watch the astronauts bend over, you will see that there is no opening on the bottom of their backpack. NASA has lied to us again. There is no heat exchanger. There is no way that the spacesuit can be cooled surrounded by a vacuum in space, ladies and gentlemen. Not only that, but even if they had a heat exchanger that was hidden in the backpack and was somehow open to the vacuum of space so that ice could evaporate, NASA has proved themselves a liar through their own words by stating that they have found ice in the shadowed portions of craters that are never lit by the light of the sun. Ice that has been there for millions, maybe billions of years. So NASA themselves have told us that ice will not evaporate into the vacuum of space. NASA has lied once again. An air conditioner will not and cannot work in a vacuum. A spacesuit surrounded by a vacuum cannot transfer heat from the inside of the suit to any other place. The vacuum, remember, is a perfect insulator. A man would roast in his suit like a hot dog in such a circumstance. The same laws of physics apply to any vehicle traveling through space. How did they cool the vehicle? Traveling through space, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, honey. My little daughter just got home and brought something in to show to me. The same laws of physics, ladies and gentlemen, apply to any vehicle traveling through space. NASA says they solved the problem of heat buildup in the space vehicle traveling from the Earth to the Moon, which you'll remember took several days, by slowly rotating the spacecraft, so that as one side was heated, this is exactly what they tell us, as one side is heated, it slowly rotates into the shadow side where it is cooled by the sub-zero temperatures of space. Another lie. Remember, space is a vacuum. It is a perfect insulator. The only thing that NASA could accomplish by slowly rotating the vehicle as it traveled through space would be to roast the astronauts evenly all the way through from all sides, just like a hot dog or a turkey on a spit. Do you understand what I'm telling you? There is no way to cool that spacecraft traveling through space, and the way that NASA does it, or the way that NASA has told us that they did it, is a lie. It is a lie. Remember, they told us that the spacecraft is slowly rotating as it travels through space. And as one side is heated to the tremendous temperatures caused by the radiant heat of the sun, it slowly rotates into the shadow side. It's always rotating, so it doesn't stay there very long. But NASA claims that it was cooled by the sub-zero temperatures of space. It is a lie. If the spacecraft was cooled by the sub-zero temperatures of space, why isn't your coffee cooled in the sub-zero temperatures of the vacuum that surrounds your coffee in a vacuum bottle? Because there is no temperature in a vacuum. And that's exactly what keeps your coffee hot, ladies and gentlemen. NASA has lied to us. NASA and the Apollo space program is one of the biggest hoaxes ever perpetrated. And this is just one of over 100 valid scientific reasons why NASA and the Apollo space program are two of the biggest lies ever foisted upon the unsuspecting and trusting people of the world. The head of NASA at the time of the Apollo space program, Mr. Kleindienst, was rewarded for his ability to hoodwink the world. He is now the Grand Commander of the Council of the 33rd Degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry of the Southern Jurisdiction. In other words, he's the boss of almost all of the Freemasons in the world. All of the astronauts were Freemasons. All of them, ladies and gentlemen. There's a photograph in the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. of Neil Armstrong on the moon's surface, supposedly. We know that he really was not there when this photograph was taken. In his spacesuit, holding his Masonic apron in front of his groin. The effect upon the people of the world was that if we could go to the moon, other creatures from other worlds could travel to our Earth. Especially an advanced race of other creatures. The escalation of the artificial alien threat scenario since that time has been and continues to be extremely obvious. After hearing this broadcast, you should go back and watch Independence Day again and listen very carefully to all of the dialogue, especially that spoken by the President and some of the other leaders of the world. A result, ladies and gentlemen, of the Genome Project at Los Alamos National Laboratory, the recent success of cloning and advances in biochemistry will produce laboratory-created creatures that will ultimately be presented to the people of the world as extraterrestrial in origin. The only reason that extraterrestrial has not been presented to humanity is that they have not yet succeeded in making one that is believable.
There you go.
For an in-depth explanation of this artificial alien threat scenario, read the report from Iron Mountain, The Probability and Possibility of Permanent Peace. The whole scenario is outlined in that study. A propaganda decoy has been presented by socialist change agents known to you as William Moore, Jamie Shanderay, and Stanton T. Friedman. It is called Operation Majestic 12. It has seeded leading sheeple, especially the ufologists, for a while anyway, away from the truth by presenting the artificial alien threat as a government cover-up, and that aliens are real. Most of the well-known ufologists and so-called UFO researchers are Illuminati socialists or government change agents operating in furtherance of propagandizing the American people. Ruby Ridge. Wake up. The attack against patriots and militias and other acts of aggression against the American people who might discover and combat this fraud are acts of war. They are designed to demonize fundamentalist Christians, Jews, Muslims, members of the Mormon Church, other religious fundamentalist organizations, the lawful constitutional militia described in the statutes and the United States Code, and anyone else who might fight in defense of the Constitution and our liberty and freedom. These terrorist acts deliver a message to the American people and to the people of the world that any opposition to the new world super government will be met with overwhelming force and the complete genocide of the enemies of capitalism. The World Trade Center bombing, the bombing of the Oklahoma City Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, and mass shootings by mental and ex-mental patients of large numbers of men, women, and children in Stockton, California, and the most recent one, were and will continue to be intentional acts of war designed to spread terror and a feeling of helplessness. Most of the ex or current mental patients who have perpetrated these acts are in fact innocent victims of mind control projects that are in activation to further the interests of this socialist new world order. In my book, Behold a Pale Horse, I predicted that the first major terrorist attack upon the United States would take place in New York City. I was correct. I said that it would not stop there, and I've said on this broadcast that it would not stop there, that it would spread, and that these attacks and shootings would continue until the American people get down on their knees and beg their slave masters to disarm them so that they can be more easily and more quickly enslaved. And the sheeple are following for it, hook, line, and sinker. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, and it is a fact, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, orchestrated the attack upon the World Trade Center, teaching the terrorists how to drive the van. They taught the terrorists how to build the bomb. They placed it in the building and detonated the bomb. One of the Federal Bureau of Investigation informants attempted to secure permission from the FBI to substitute ingredients for bombs so that no one would be injured. But the Federal Bureau of Investigation agent in charge denied the request. The informant tape recorded every single one of his conversations. That's right, it's a combination. He recorded all of his conversations with the FBI, and a full transcript of the tapes were printed in the New York Times. The judge refused to allow the tape to be presented in court in defense of the FBI informant. Confederate would be a much better word. The attack on the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building was designed to affect the heartland. It was designed, ladies and gentlemen, to affect the heartland so that no one in the nation will feel safe. These acts, in the manner of Hegel's dialectic, are leading to a need for the elimination of the rights of individuals and the disarmament of all peoples so that the world supergovernment can step up to provide a solution which will be artificial safety and security from terrorism, something that no one can ever guarantee. But the sheeple will believe it. Thesis against antithesis equals synthesis. The Omnibus Terrorism Act, which followed, gave the president the power to arrest, imprison, and/or deport any political opposition to trial without habeas corpus, without explanation of any kind. It in fact gave him the power in any group, a terrorist group, thus setting the stage for the arrest, detention, imprisonment without of habeas corpus, without benefit of any kind of trial, with a possible result of deportation to a foreign country, and with explanation to anybody, by anybody. And I'm here to tell you if these acts of will be chemical biological attacks. They will
based on X files that the FBI investigated. He's the actual expert.
of habeas corpus, the elimination of jury trials, and the institution of martial law with show trials conducted by a tribunal of judges. When you continue to hear this Constitution referred to as a democracy, you must remember that V.I. Lenin, the founder of the Soviet Union, said, quote, "Democracy is indispensable to socialism," end quote. When you hear our military referred to as UN peacekeepers, remember that both Karl Marx and Lenin defined peace as, quote, the elimination of all opposition to socialism, end quote. We wonder where all this is taking us.
Okay. Serious. Okay. That's it for now. So, yeah, that was Diane Dane, I think. She's, I don't know, she doesn't know she's been gangster. But I was starting this off with Mystery Trail about the new global commonest order, but I'm gonna mute the stream for a bit so I can watch this time in the morning just to catch up on movie clip. What I finish up what I've got to do to settle down for the night, morning now. So the gangstaking target program, William Bill Cooper, and you can see the Aussie and I in that image there. Well, it's all about the 3 movies I saw dated back 1982, 81. I don't know if my order is working because I keep hacking my computer. Yeah, the sound quality is bad. Yeah, so if you can hear through all this hacking I get all the time, I don't know how Diana, this woman in America, she don't get hacked as bad as me. But I can hear there's an interference on the network. So I don't know if the sound is still going. Slightly. So I don't know how long ago it was, and I stumbled across the audio radio. Oh, a long time ago now. Was from I've forgotten what kind of radio shows it were in America. I used to live a long time ago, and then over the years I stumbled across William Bill Cooper, who they set him up and killed him, didn't they, in the late 90s? And I've got the book, I've downloaded it, I haven't read it because it's quite detailed. I'd rather have a physical book rather than a PDF. But I'm more visual, want to watch things rather than read things if I can because of the brain interface affects the body. So I'm a survivor of so much things like many people are. But when you go through so much trauma in your personal situation, and eventually you find out it's hereditary. So a lot of things it's been hidden from the public domain. And it's nothing new because when you just wake up to this physical existence, it's just like a Matrix movie, really. You unravel a lot of cobwebs away from the truth, and your mindset becomes waking up and boils down to one thing, really, is a lot of this man-made alien type theory is by experimenting and messing about with different DNA and species, and the Black Operations program with the minor labs. There is a website you might want to check. I think it's called Super Soldiers Talk. I'm not sure. Is it .net.org or something? Anyway, there's videos around as well. And there's a couple of people that do talk about the military black operations, which masks itself as like alien abductions kind of scenario, and where the mind is wiped after you don't remember anything, you wake up. And I've got audio recordings, that's why sometimes I stream night in my sleep, because I need to document it. I can hear footsteps and all sorts. I know the technology, they can, when you're targeted, come from some kind of advanced technology. They can do it that way. I know that they can do that. But it's a bit like Star Trek. So all these futuristic movies, these authors, the script writers, they've got to come up with ideas from somewhere. doesn't come out just from thin air. Or some is creative writing, but some is not. And so, yeah, when you live a life like mine, it's like they get you so isolated. So they get your family, your friends, if you work colleagues, to take part. And I don't know how much they get bribed or paid off to turn against you. And the ultimate goal is psychological too, to mess about your sort of emotions. Your emotions are not your own because the frequencies, the different times of frequencies for to create pain, illnesses in the body, mess about with hearing like tinnitus. I don't get PTK, I don't have that. And then it is military operations. It really is well organised by the Satanists. So what are Satanists? Who do they really practice their actions with? It is like Alistair Crowley used to say in his books when people ever come across them. I mean, this goes back ancient, real old times, and I didn't know until someone put in a chat, or his video, guy in America, pastor, priest of teaching, that one of the pastors I've been following online, a Baptist well-known preacher, is actually Satanist himself, and the organised religion he comes from 1600s, of worshiping darker cults. It's just really the times of the end of days is here, where it says the false gods, false religion. Mark of the beast is not quite what you think it is, perhaps. But I know any day they can burst through my door and lie about me and make up BS about me and get away with it. But they can't take my soul. I've had my fridge broken, I've had my wheelchair wheel faulty, which is all trauma. These past 3 days, it's been extreme triggers and traumas, and poisoned food, and I will never forget this end of year, and it's not quite finished yet. A few more days left, so I might get 4 or 5 hours sleep if I'm lucky. Might not get that much, but every time I try and sleep, I'm getting radiated. The frequencies in my hair's like straw. My teeth are getting damaged, and I'm always into natural health. I do the best I can to detox, and we've got perpetrators living around me, every block. I mean, every flat, basically now. And a certain male behind started it off with the libel and slander. It is right opposite. So they want to make me homeless. And they do it in such a way where it doesn't look so obvious. And people are homeless already in the freezing cold. Some people in North America got prepared for those suffering as well. Nobody on this planet, nobody needs to suffer the way they do in their own way. Because these globalist puppets on the string, from history and the Rockefeller banking industry and the families, and the bloodline families, 13 of them, it's infiltrated for a long time. They've just been waiting in the wings. So it's battle over the evil, isn't it? Battle over good. Good always rises up. The positive healing spirit always rises up somehow. It doesn't feel like that at times, but it does eventually. And there is one of these spiritual awakenings. I don't know, anybody senses that already. Different platforms, I know. So I'm just going to mute this and just listen into that podcast. because sometimes you just need to have something playing in the background where you've got BS on your plate, just to focus on your spirituality and keep that breathing, keep that body in tune, you know. While we're going through worse, the times are ahead. I mean, at the moment, things are the way they are, and in England, it's going to get worse. They got more strikes planned in the next week and two, whatever else. And, well, they can't take your soul unless you give it away, you know, unless you let these saints take your soul and you participate in what they believe in. Because I tell you, I never thought I'd be at my age so awakened, so knowledgeable what I know. And they do, it's said that they do choose, you know, this, it's like, depending what your belief systems are, they do choose people from your birth. And it's a bit like that movie, Adjustment Bureau. But you go up your path, which I did, I wasn't going to follow the way I was raised in certain areas, and I went off and done my own thing. I stumbled across things of a very demonic nature, and because of that, I got set up. They set me up with somebody that was a horrible man, and he tried to kill me. And because what he tried to do to me 22 years ago, every Christmas, I don't do Christmas anymore now. I know it's pagan rituals mainly, but I used to do all that, celebrate Christmas and all that stuff. But I used to buy into the beautiful lights and the romance and the fairy tales and all the lovely food, but people are starving hungry right now. You know, I don't know what it was when I woke up to so much corruption. But there are guardian angels around. There really is spiritual guardian angels around. I'm witness firsthand of this. And they're very rare places that you wouldn't even believe. I don't know why I'm still surviving, but somehow I am. And these trials and tribulations are sent to try us. I tell you that now. So when I see someone's stream just going off on one, just for views and social media. Anyway, time's up now. Just chill out a bit. Just signing out. Signing out. Signing out. Signing out. Signing out. Meet at least.